It's the 25th night tonight. It's an odd night, and we are rapidly heading towards the culmination, the completion of this blessed month. And when we read the Quran, we get a sense of how distant we are from the profound truths which are found within the kalam of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Almost every single surah of the Quran speaks about the akhirah and about Qiyamah, and the surahs which we heard today are no exception whatsoever. In fact, Qiyamah is such a momentous occasion that it is described with so many different names and in so many different ways. I remember reading of a youth who could not tolerate the recitation of Suratul Qari'ah. It's mentioned in one of the tafsirs. And this surah is all about Qiyamah. It's about how that day, Qara'a means to knock something. It will shake up this whole world and break it up. So somebody thought that he was putting it on. He would request and beg somebody not to recite Surah Qari'ah if they began to recite it. But somebody thought he was putting it on, so they recited it anyway. He died in listening to this surah. It's a short surah of the Quran. And we listen to and we recite the Quran daily. We read its translation, we study its tafsir, but it seems not to have the impact on us that it ought to have. We listen to the concluding section of Surah Al-Dhariyat, the scattering winds. This surah begins with various oaths, different types of winds mentioned in the Quran. And in the early part of the recitation today, we heard about the special and noble guests of Ibrahim alayhi salam. And this is mentioned in more than one place in the Quran. And there's an interesting detail here. He sees these guests, and seeing their piety and nobility, the nur that emanated from them, he wanted to show them special honor. As the hadith says, لَا يَأْكُلْ طَعَامَكَ إِلَّا تَقِي. If you want to specially invite somebody, then it should be a pious person. Otherwise, you should feed everybody. Ibrahim alayhi salam himself would never eat alone. And on one occasion, he invited a man to eat with him, and he requested him to take Allah's name. And he was a mushrik. He refused, and Ibrahim became upset with him, and he refused to feed him. And he was reprimanded by Allah gently that I have fed him all his life. He's never taken my name. So you should feed him too. So feeding is for everybody, but the special people that you hang about with, you call to your table, your dastarkhan, your sufra, should be pious people. So Ibrahim alayhi salam notices their piety, and what does he do? And there's a moral for us here. You know what I'm seeing these days is everybody makes things up as they go along. A lot of people, they just make decisions, assumptions. This is how it should be. In my mind it's like this. It's always been like this in my life. And that's how it is. So we're unwilling to learn deen. Learn the things we've never learned. فَرَاغَ إِلَىٰ أَهْلِ. Ibrahim alayhi salam rushed to his household. So what do we see here? He's participating with his family, his wife and him. What are they doing? They're working together to serve the guest. فَجَاءَ, there's a fa here, not a thumma. In Arabic, this means it happened rapidly. بِعِجْلٍ samin. In another place, بِعِجْلٍ hanid. He comes with a roasted calf, the whole thing. Not a lamb, a calf. The Angus beef that people seek out here. This is the sunnah, to serve beef of Ibrahim alayhi salam to his guests. This huge animal subhanallah, roasted, fried, or full of the natural fat. The saman is also ghee. So one of the interpretations is that it was fried in fat. So fried, not a steak, but the whole thing. You get the picture? And he didn't just stop there. In fact, he greets them with salam, then he quickly prepares the hospitality. فَقَرَّبَهُ إِلَيْهِمْ. He pushes it towards them. This is another etiquette of entertainment. You entertain your guests. Those who are in khidmah in the masjid should know this. We are supposed to encourage our guests to eat. And if the people who come to the houses of Allah are not pious, then nobody is pious on earth. So قَرَّبَهُ إِلَيْهِمْ. He pushes the food towards them. أَلَا تَأْكُلُونَ. He says words of encouragement. You won't eat? فَأَوْجَسَ فِي نَفْسِهِ خِيفَةً. They don't eat. The guests won't eat. Now Ibrahim a.s. finds them to be قَوْمٌ مُنْكَرُونَ. He finds them to be odd people. Why aren't they eating? So he gets a sense of concern and worry and a type of fear in his heart. And then they inform him that we are sent from Allah. In other words, we are not human beings. We've come in human form. We are angels. And they give him good news of the qudra of Allah, that your wife is going to have a child in her old age. فَسَكَّتْ وَجْهَهَا. She squeals and she goes like this. And she laughs out. This is Sarah. And she says, Ajuzun aqim, a barren old woman, how am I going to have a child? And they explain, as they have explained to Maryam alayhi salam, later, as Jibreel explains, this is Allah's decree, it will happen. So this is the same angels, they come to the house of Ibrahim with salam upon his family and good news of a child. And this child is going to father Yaqub alayhi salam, and he's going to father Yusuf and his brothers, and there's going to be so many anbiya. And the same angels, when Ibrahim alayhi salam asks them why they're visiting, they give him some very, very bad news. And they say, we've been sent to the qawm of Lut alayhi salatu wassalam with punishment. And he becomes afraid for this qawm because Ibrahim, the Abrani name, Abun Rahim, translates as a merciful and compassionate father. He's concerned about humanity. We should be too. We will have a connection with Ibrahim alayhi salam. So he pleads and intercedes for them, and Allah praises him in the Quran here. In these days of promiscuousness and permissiveness and hedonism, we too should be afraid. There are so many reasons why so many ways in which we are inviting Allah's punishments. And you know, when Allah's punishment comes, if you're not responsible for the sin, then you will not be questioned in the akhirah for someone else's sin, but you will lose your dunya. What happens is when Allah's punishment comes, in fact in one hadith, it is mentioned that Jibreel alayhi salatu wassalam is sent. If you keep your bottles a bit still, please. You can drink the water quietly. I gave up very quickly. This is the problem. Right? So I'm not going to be stubborn with you. So if you don't want to listen, then I won't persevere. So what happens is Jibreel alayhi salatu wasalam, he's sent to punish a people. And he says, oh Allah, amongst them is such and such a pious man. He's never disobeyed you, even for a moment. And Allah Ta'ala says, turn the township, turn it over upon him as well as them. Punish them all. Because lam yatama'ar, his face never scowled for my sake even once. He was never upset when other people were disobeying me. So as human beings, we have a responsibility for what's happening around the world. Whether it's not speaking up and calling out the injustices that are being perpetuated, the crimes, whether it be the Palestinians, the people of Gaza, or anywhere else in the world, or not raising our voices when it comes to moral issues. So Lut alayhi salatu wassalam, his people are punished that night. And the land of Babylon, of Babel, is taken up into the heavens, so close that the crowing of the cock and the barking of the dog is heard by those in the heavens. And this is the worst type of punishment ever explained in the Quran, because musawwamatan inda rabbik, stones, it rains stones, and each stone is marked with its target, who it's going to hit. And this is happening simultaneously, the rain of stones, while the earth is being raised up. And as the Quran mentions in another place, فَجَعَلْنَا عَالِيَهَا سَافِلَهَا, it was turned upside down and crushed. So this surah continues, it talks about different nations and how they fared when they disobeyed their anbiya, how the punishment came. And we also heard the recitation of Surah At-Tur, the mountain of Tur. We heard the recitation of Surah An-Najm. And in this surah, Allah Azza wa Jal mentions the Mi'raj, the Muqam, the status of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. There's a powerful negation of shirk here. And we heard the recitation of Surah Al-Qamar, which opens with the mention of the splitting of the moon, one of the mu'jizats of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. They had demanded it, so with Allah's command, it happened. Rasulullah alayhi salatu wasallam pointed to the moon and it split asunder. It broke up in two parts. And Jabal Hira in Mecca, Jabal Nur, one piece was on one side and the other on the other. And what did they say? They said, Sihrun Mustamir. They said it's powerful magic. Or another interpretation is continuous magic. Because what happened is the travelers that were entering into Mecca had seen it from distances, and they would also report the same thing. So we heard Surah An-Najm, and we heard Surah Ar-Rahman, which mentions the various ni'mas of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the dunya and in the akhirah. And we heard Surah Al-Waqi'ah, the event is named after Qiyamah. إِذَا وَقَعَتِ الْوَاقِعَةِ, when the event will occur. لَيْسَ لِوَقَعَتِهَا كَاذِبَةً, when it will happen, there'll be no one to deny it. Everybody will accept, because it's there in real now. Nobody will say that it's a false promise, bring it quickly. It will be there in front of you. إِذَا وَقَعَتِ الْوَاقِعَةِ لَيْسَ لِوَقَعَتِهَا كَاذِبَةً خَافِضَةٌ رَافِعَةٌ, it will lower some people and raise others. The arrogant jababira, the mutakabbirin of the dunya, they will be lowered on the day of Qiyamah. And the humble, innocent ones who piously stuck to the do's and don'ts of the Creator, they'll be raised and elevated. خَافِضَةٌ رَافِعَةٌ إِذَا رُجَّتِ الْأَرْضُ رَجَّا وَبُسَّتِ الْجِبَالُ بَسًّا, when the earth will be given a mighty shake, it will have the biggest earthquake, إِذَا زُلْزِلَتِ الْأَرْضُ زِلْزَالَهَا, that there ever was. And إِذَا رُجَّتِ الْأَرْضُ رَجَّا وَبُسَّتِ الْجِبَالُ بَسًّا فَكَانَتْ هَبَاءً مُنْبَثًّا, the mountains will be plucked up, they will fly, they will crash into each other, they will be broken up into dust, and then the dust will fly. And then Allah Ta'ala mentions in this surah different groups of people. And Allah Ta'ala mentions these groups on the day of Qiyamah. Who are they? They are the people of the right. They will be on the right of the arsh. They are named as the right, people of the right, because of various reasons. The Mufassirin mention that they were taken out from the right side of Adam alayhi salam when the mithaq, the pledge, was taken, and they will receive their books of deeds in their right hands. Allah make us amongst them. And they will be received from the right side. And ثُلَّةٌ مِّنَ الْأَوَّلِينَ وَثُلَّةٌ مِّنَ الْآخِرِينَ, they'll be in large numbers from the early generations and the latter generations. This is either referring to the early generations of previous nations and the latter generations this ummah, or both are referring to this ummah. And then you have the Ashabu Shimal, the people of the left, those who were taken out of Adam alayhi salam, their souls from the left side, and they will receive their book of deeds from the left side and in the left hand, and they will be received by the angels and taken into their hands from the left side. And then you have the Muqarrabin, those who do even better, the forerunners, the ones who are very close to Allah, and they get ahead even of the Ashabul Yameen. And they are referred to as Thullatun min al-awwalin wa qalilun min al-akhirin. Large numbers in the early generations and small numbers in the latter generations. And again, there's a number of opinions here. Large numbers from previous ummahs, but predominantly the Mufassirin say no. Large numbers from the early generations of the ummah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But there will still continue to be very pious people till Qiyamah, so smaller numbers in the latter generations. Now, when it comes to this kind of discussion, and the mu'min thinks in their heart, I wish I was from them. Yeah, we should have that ambition, but with a lot of humbleness and meekness, because we need to understand that. Subhanallah, I heard it quoted from one of my teachers, actually. I've not read this narration, but I've heard it quoted from one of my teachers that when Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu, when he heard that finally, eventually, Allah out of His mercy will take a handful of people out of Jahannam after everybody has gone to their places. Umar radiallahu anhu is saying with a cry that perhaps I will be one of those people. And he's from the Ashara Mubashara. So the type of these people, and Umar was on the record, he says that if Allah doesn't punish me and He doesn't put me into Jannah, that's enough. Fair and square. So as people, in a way, it's a bit rich, as we might say. It's a bit rich for us to say that we want to be from the Muqarrabeen, when our days and nights, our moments, our family lives and our private lives and our public lives and our dealings and our tongues and our ibadah, where are we and where should we be? And this doesn't mean that we should become hopeless. It means we should wake up. So the surah then continues and it talks about the ni'mas of Jannah that will be given to the Muqarrabeen and the Ashabul Yameen. And this is a beautiful narrative here. The couches and thrones interwoven with gold and surrounded with attendants, Gas min ma'in, the laden, the brimming cup of clear, pure wine, La yusadda'una anha wa la yunzifun, and it won't cause headaches and hangover, and they will not stammer and stutter and utter obscenities as drunk people do in the dunya. It'll be pure wine, and they'll be given fruit and meat, and they'll have wives and so forth, and then the ashab, and there'll be an environment of salam, there won't be any futile talk. And then Allah Ta'ala mentions the Ashabul Yameen, the plantains and bananas of Jannah, and the deep shade, the long trees. The hadith mentions a fast animal will run for 100 years and it won't come out of that shade. And the ulama mentioned the shade is somewhere like when you have in a hot country, the cool early part of the morning, where it's comfortable, it's cool, but it's bright as well. And so the plantains of Jannah and the long shade and the fruits, the trees which are easy to pick, and then the families, the wives, the marriages of Jannah are mentioned here, and so on and so forth. And then the punishment of Jahannam is mentioned. The hot water and the scalding, smoky air, foul smelling, and then the fruit of Jahannam, Zaqqum, which people will be forced to eat, and the hot water which they'll be forced to drink, Shurb al-Him. When a camel is thirsty and has not had a drink for a long number of days, it will swallow gallons very rapidly. And this is well documented, and you can observe it for real. You want to see when a camel drinks. So they'll be thirsty, the people of Jahannam, and they'll have nothing to drink except that hot water, but they'll have no option but to drink it, and it will scald and burn their innards. So this is mentioned, and then the surah goes on and it talks about, there's a big qasam Allah takes, and it talks about the truth of the Quran. فَلَا أُقْسِمُ بِمَوَاقِعِ النُّجُومِ وَإِنَّهُ لَقَسَمٌ لَوْ تَعْلَمُونَ عَظِيمٌ إِنَّهُ لَقُرْآنٌ كَرِيمٌ. The Quran, quickly, I'm just going to rush now to the end of the few words that I'm wanting to say. This analogy of the qasam of the stars and then the Quran being mentioned, some of the mufassirin say that the Quran is being compared to the sun here. So the stars fade out of significance when the sun is before you. So as we sit here in the 15th century Hijri, in the Ummah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, my friends, the sun, the shining sun of the Quran is amongst us. It's for us to take its radiance. And Allah Ta'ala talks about its status and muqam. And then Allah talks about the final moments of the dying person. And Allah Ta'ala talks about the different types of dying people. And the surah ends with this theme: the muqarrabeen, the ashabul yameen, and the ashabul shimal. And then we also heard the recitation of Suratul Hadid, iron, which talks about the benefits of iron amongst other things. Civilization is based on the steel industry, al-hadid. And the surah is full of, begins with a powerful exposition, a powerful description of the sifat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and there are many other themes in this surah as well. So the point I was making, I'll end from where I started. When you read these surahs, you get a sense that we are very, very far from where we should be, because if we really devoted ourselves to the message of the Quran, our focus would not be on the dunya. Where would it be? It would be on the akhirah. May Allah grant that to us.